Good evening, everybody. Tonight's class is dedicated to Lila Nishmas Bilha Bastvorova Avraham. We are very excited and honored to have with us Rabbi Chaim Lazaroff from Chabad in Houston, Texas. He was also an MHFA instructor, which we're going to learn about. So Rabbi Lazaroff, first and foremost, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it. Welcome to our weekly Zoom discussions with fascinating people on Tuesday nights.
Oh boy.
Boy is right.
Hope I'll be fascinating.
I have no doubt. We're very much excited about having you join us, and we really appreciate it. So we always like to say, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your shlichus, what is life like there in Texas, and give us a little insight into Rabbi Chaim Lazaroff to get us started.
Well, my parents moved down to Texas on the Rebbe's behest in 1972. They opened Chabad in Texas. I was born here in Houston, Texas. I was raised here, and I went away to yeshiva. My sister-in-law suggested I meet her classmate. Turned out to be a great idea. We got married, and we moved back down to Houston.
What year was that? What year did you move back to Houston?
2002.
2002. You know, we had your brother Lazer on about his Ashel house on our Tuesday night classes. People may remember at the medical center. So, you know, you're in some fancy high level company here. Okay, so what is your community like where you are in Texas?
So I'm involved in two communities really. The main Chabad community where my parents run. I help them a lot in the Chabad of Texas and the operations of the facility. It includes a synagogue, a mikveh for men, mikveh for women, a dish mikveh, has a day school from 18 months through 8th grade, and a day camp and many other things, including operation of Chabad in Texas. And I also act as one in the rabbinate there as well. We do a lot of rabbinical needs for the community, including personal questions people have or things with connection to the rabbinut in Israel. I do that's one hat I have. And then that's from 9 to 5. I get 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I have my other job, my other 9 to 5 job, is where I'm sitting right now at Chabad of Uptown. And this in the downtown area of Houston, like the Fifth Avenue shopping district, where there's a lot of hybrid type of shopping and living in houses and high rises. And so we cater to that community of young professionals and mostly empty nesters that live in the neighborhood. And so that's what we do on young professionals, including families as well, but that's kind of what we do at Chabad of Uptown. So that's my 9 to 5 job on weekends, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Here I am at 9:15 p.m. on with you from Chabad of Uptown.
We appreciate it. Now, you are also, and we want to really talk about your role as an MHFA instructor. Now, many people here on our Zoom know that a couple of weeks ago, you were here in Chicago, and I, along with 50 other rabbis and 50 other rebbitzins, took a 2-day course. And I also actually took it last year. It was so good that I took it again. And if you can see in the background of my computer, of my screen here, let's see if I get you a better shot, my blue diploma, as that I am an MHFA adult something or other. So tell everybody, what is MHFA? And let's talk about this in the program a little bit that you did here in Chicago and you've done for many, many more, which was really, really beneficial.
So mental health first aid is an immersive program to provide anyone, whether they're professionals or laymen that aren't involved in mental health, a structure of how to respond to mental health first aider, to respond to early signs and symptoms or developing signs and symptoms or crisis situations, give a very structured response of how to deal with the individual and how to get them to proper care.
Okay, so how did you become particularly interested, in this area? What's the backstory? You know, you're a rabbi, you're a pretty busy guy, as you described. You got a whole big state in Texas. I'm sure you got many people, as you said, shuls and schools and Hebrew schools and mikvahs, and people want to put on tefillin and learn and so on. How did you get involved in mental health first aid? And while you're saying that, I'll just share with everybody, here's a quick picture of us from when you were here, and you see who got to stand in the front and even hold the little mascot, of course, everybody's favorite rabbi with the little mascot there, just a little showing off. Okay, but please tell us, how did you get involved? What's the backstory? Like you said, you're not sitting around doing nothing. How did mental health first aid cross your path and you got involved to the point that you became an instructor?
So the Jewish Family Service in Houston recognized the rise in mental health problems and challenges in the community, and it was a rise in suicides, which is the unfortunate outcome of a mental health challenge, unfortunately. And it was not necessarily more in the Jewish community than others, but even one person is too much. And so they made a push to try to get community members and leaders trained in mental health first aid. And I don't recall what pushed me to do so, but I actually went and took the course, and I found it very insightful in many ways, and being able to get a better bearing of what it is that people are sharing and why they're sharing and what's happening beneath the surface. That then when they then during that period of time as well, there was a community member that died of an accidental overdose. He suffered with depression for many years, and we take care of the family, orphans, and a widow, unfortunately, till this day. And he was someone that was close with me personally and with the community at large. And I felt like that we can't sit by idly and watch this happen. And the Jewish Family Service made a push because they realized they only had one or two instructors, that they can't train as many people as they want to train with just the one or two instructors they had. Because you can't have more than 30 people in a class and people's schedules. And so they made a push to get people certified to become instructors. And so I decided to become a mental health first aid instructor so that I can provide the tools to my community in Houston to have an impact on their constituents, their families, their coworkers, the people that they know, and to be able to reverse the trend.
So give us a time frame. Is this for 20 years ago, 10 years ago? How long has this been sort of going on in your personal life, and where has it gone from there?
I believe I first became trained as a mental health first aider in 2017. And I became trained as a mental health first aid instructor in 2019.
Okay, so 2019, and then of course comes 2020, boom, COVID hits. We actually started this program when COVID began. Initially, it was about helping people get ready for Pesach in 2020, and we've kept it going ever since. What have you seen how COVID has affected mental health? I mean, again, when you started this in 2017 and then 19, I mean, no one ever heard of this. And all of a sudden, we have not only a respiratory health issue, we have an enormous mental health issue. Can you give us some experiences that you had as how COVID in particular, right when you got this certification, came into play?
So I already was certified as an instructor for about a little over a year, and we, thank God, were able to get in many trainings, and we trained, I think, close to 100, meaning we overall trained over 500, I believe. But locally, I trained along with other instructors, about 100 people locally in Houston.
When you say, just to jump in there, 100, these are lay people, these are rabbis, these are teachers. I mean, what's the qualification for someone to get this training?
You have to be human.
Okay.
Care.
You have to care. No, that's hard. Humans, and, we got caring is a little harder.
Right. And typically about and when I did it locally, when I teach them locally, there's a good percentage, maybe 30% or maybe 50%, that are actually mental health professionals that take it for continuing education, but also find it useful because it gives a very structured method of how to respond to mental health problems. So it's a very robust curriculum, and it's a long curriculum, but they find it helpful as well. So I think with COVID, answer that question, mental health problems get worse in isolation, and people need human connection. And although we thankfully had at the same time Zoom that allows us to connect in ways that we were not able to do so before, it's still, many people don't find it comforting, and they don't find connection through it. And no question that the isolation has caused a tremendous amount of decline in people's mental state. And so it became somewhat of, for the mental health first aid community, somewhat of a crisis of because the training had to be done in person, and there was no method of how to teach it online. And so the National Council of Mental Wellness pivoted very quickly in trying to restructure the curriculum that was supposed to be released in 2020 anyway, and had to like rewrite the whole thing to be online friendly. And they took about 6 months where we couldn't teach anyone, and then finally they released it, and it was on a beta project. Then it became fully released, and we started teaching it online because I saw the need that we can't just sit by idly talking to people. It was obvious that there was the problems were only getting worse.
And I'm a student. So you've trained. Can you share with us what has your experience been like in training hundreds, I don't know, maybe thousands at this point, mental health first aiders, especially when it comes to training Chabad rabbis? It's not something that we learn in yeshiva. It's not something that's in the Talmud that we see or we maybe think about. Maybe it is. How has that experience been? What's it been like for you with your rabbinic training, your yeshiva training? You're growing up in a household of shlichus training, and how has it worked with or independently? How's that enriched your experience?
Well, there's absolutely no question that it allowed me to become a better shliach and a better rabbi, personally, which is why I decided to become an instructor as well. Just dealing with people on a daily basis, first person they usually come to with their challenges, looking for spiritual guidance, is often the rabbi. And sometimes the spiritual guidance is a solution, and sometimes it's not. And giving me the tools to be able to recognize what the signs and symptoms are, and knowing how to respond in an effective way, has really changed the way I do my daily work.
You have a rough number. I mean, you were here a couple of weeks ago. It was a great program, 2 days spread out, 50 rabbis, 50 rebbitzins. It was a woman training the women. A rough number, how many Chabad rabbis in particular, or maybe rabbis specifically that you've trained, and I would assume you would recommend that everybody get trained.
Yeah, so now we're at 267 Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins.
All in the United States, I'm assuming.
All in the United States. Yeah. We're not allowed to teach across outside of country borders.
Okay.
In the United States, 267 rabbis and rebbitzins.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an enormous step.
It actually wasn't my intent originally. My intent was to make an impact in our local community. But once I went to Zoom, I saw my classes weren't full. And I was like, if I'm going to be spending a full day of my time, which is I don't have 8 hours training, I might as well get as many students as I can. So sure. I just posted on the local WhatsApp or some of my friends' WhatsApps. I don't remember where. And hey, I'm doing this training.
That's how I learned about it. Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, the class was overbooked, and so I realized the tremendous need among the shluchim and shluchis. So I started doing one specifically for shluchim and for shluchis because the conversations are very different for men and for women. Among the the Chabad leadership and clergy, it's a different kind of conversation, and so every time I've done it, it's been a packed class. I mean, just without an extra seat to spare. So
amazing. So you need to train some more trainers.
Yeah,
you need to train trainers. You need to train trainers.
Yeah, so people can get trained. You go on mentalhealthfirstaid.org. You can take an instructor course. You can take a regular course.
So people here. So let's just throw that out now. So people who are on here and they might be interested. They don't need to take a sort of Jewish course. It's not a Jewish course.
No.
And it's still available online, or maybe there's even somebody locally here in Chicago or in the suburbs with some of the people who are joining us, or even from downstate and other states, that they could. So what's the website? I'll put it in the chat. If you just let me know, what is the website?
It's mentalhealthfirstaid.org.
Mental health.
You put in your zip code. It's like
first aid, firstaid.org.
Yeah.
Okay, I just put it in the chat, and if anybody wants to copy that, and they can go to it, and then there's an opportunity for them to learn about it and to get trained. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. Wow. So
there's trainings everywhere.
Okay.
I mean, now there's been a lot more online because it's a lot easier for everybody to do it online. But to be honest, online is maybe 70% of the value.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone, the
again,
full
just
value of the training in person is the way to go.
personal testament. I took it online last year and I found it extraordinarily. And I told Rabbi Lazaroff, and I'm not just saying this because he's on here, I try to go to all these different types of courses that are offered for rabbis, and most of them are snoozers. And they put a PDF up on the screen and then they read it. And then they say, anyone have any questions? And it's, I mean, I remember you are working, you are running, and you're lucky if you can eat your lunch. And I took it online and I found it extraordinarily helpful. And then I was very excited that came here. And again, a woman, Mrs. Francis, came and taught the women. And I was extraordinarily excited. And again, even though I had the certificate, I got to hold the little stuffed bear. But it was a wonderfully valuable. So Rabbi, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Can you give us just a little taste? I mean, obviously you're not doing a training now. It's a 2-day program, but what is perhaps one little tidbit that you think we could take away from discussion about mental health that might be something that, because everybody knows somebody who's going through a difficult time, whether it's tragic or dramatic or traumatic. And then if anybody wants to jump in with a quick question, we do want to be respectful of the rabbi's time. If somebody wants to jump in, they want to put it in the chat or they want to chat it to me and I'll ask it. But let's ask Rabbi Lazaroff to give us just one little tidbit that we might be able to employ if we know someone going through a mental health challenge.
Well, there's so many tidbits, but to me, what's most impactful about mental health first aid is the concept of it being an upstream model. That we need to help and recognize signs and symptoms early on in the onset of problems that people may be having. And that may be things that we don't see on the surface. People walk around all day and they may give off an impression that everything is great. Beneath the surface, there may be a lot of struggle going on. And if we even sense that someone is changing behaviors, is canceling on us last minute, is not showing up to meetings, or not showing up to what we usually see them in shul, we shouldn't just say, oh, they must be upset at me, or they're having a bad day. They're probably having a bad day. And we need to be responsible as fellow citizens, whether we're Jewish, not Jewish, anybody in your circle of influence, to reach out to those people and just to see how they're doing. I mean, the amount of impact it has, just the fact that you reached out and you cared, cannot be stressed enough. And that's the way we don't need to wait until there is a developing problem to the point of where it's so much more difficult to reverse. Someone has a strep throat. If you say, oh, I'm not going to, we're not going to treat it yet. You know how many years it takes for an average person to get professional help if they have a mental health problem? Anybody here know? Yes. Put it in the chat. I don't know. Answer.
Who's got a number? Hold up your fingers.
How many years do you think? 2 years? Yeah. Anybody else want to answer? I guess that's the best answer we can get. How about 20 years? 20 years. From the people having the earliest signs and symptoms of mental health problems till they actually get professional help, the average in America is 20 years. Imagine someone has a strep throat and they don't take penicillin for 20 years. By then, they probably had a kidney transplant, if they're still alive. So no wonder we have a developing problem where people are literally dying from suicide because of it. So that's number one, what we can all do right now, here tonight. Second thing I think is the biggest issue is stigma. Because the biggest barrier to help why people take 20 years is because there's stigma attached to it and they don't want to be labeled. And we need to stop the stigma. We need to stop talking about it like it's some sort of illness that they should be embarrassed of. It used to be when cancer first started. Everyone was like, no one wanted to say the word, no one wanted to talk about it. Everyone said it's a death sentence. And it's changed, just because we all know so many people that have survived and are doing very well with cancer many, many years later. And similarly as well, we should have the same kind of attitude with mental health problems, because if 1 in 5 people are struggling with a mental health challenge in America, 1 in 5, that means we have here on this Zoom 13 people. There's at least 2 people that are struggling here, based on statistics.
Somebody posted here and asked me to ask you if you ever visit the elderly who are depressed, and is there any permission that's necessary? Or can a family member, I mean, what do you ever run into any kind of issues about approaching people with any kind of, I don't know, legal concerns and so forth?
No, not at all. I mean, you're not taking a Hippocratic oath. You're not legally bound. Your professional responsibilities trump any duties you have as a mental health first aider. It's like taking CPR. If you're a doctor, you have to respond. But if you're a private bystander, you may or may not respond depending on what you decide you want to do as an individual. And this is just like CPR. It's just another way of structure of how to respond to a mental health challenge.
Wow. Okay, Rabbi, we do want to let you go. We want to thank you tremendously for your time,
How much burden does it leave on you to listen to the struggle of other people? And how do you deal with that?
That's a very, very good question. Talking to anyone, I mean, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a rabbi. All rabbis will tell you, we do this all the time. Just now I have a better structure of how to respond and how to react. And one of the biggest things that many rabbis deal with is burnout and dealing with people's problems, and afterwards being so drained and having such a huge headache or having to deal with and carrying their burdens, which is very, very hard. So like a centerpiece of the new mental health first aid curriculum is a whole section on self-care, because you can't put on your own oxygen mask after you put on the child. You go on the plane, you put on your child's oxygen mask first and then yourself. You don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. So self-care is a very central piece of mental health first aid before, during, and after, whenever you're dealing with any kind of problem.
Wonderful.
To be clear, I haven't opened up a mental health practice. I'm just doing what I do every day. Just now I'm doing it more intelligently.
Got some better training. That's beautiful. Okay. Again, Rabbi, thank you so much. Thank you for coming here and doing a training for the Chabad rabbis and rebbitzins in Illinois. Thank you. I mean, really, for joining us tonight. And now you can get to back to your 9 to 5, your 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., and then you can go to sleep until 9 a.m. Just a scheduling note, everybody. As you know, because you've all paid attention, I am going to the JLI. I remember we had JLI on, so I will not be here for the rest of this week or next week. So our next class is going to be on the 22nd. So not the rest of this week and not at all next week. I'm off to JLI in sunny Florida. I'll see you then. And Rabbi, thank you so much. I'll send out the recording. Good night. And
Pleasure. Take care. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.